Image Comics has existed for about 30 years now, but if you've never read any of the titles, then make sure that you watch this video. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. The first recommendation that I'm going to give to you is actually the first Image title that I reviewed on this channel, and that is Kill or Be Killed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. It'd be impossible for me to do a where to start on Image Comics without mentioning this creative duo, because they've already given us such great titles, and Kill or Be Killed is definitely one of those top tier books. The reason why I'm recommending this over something like Criminal is because this is one complete story rather than a collection of short ones. I think it gives you a better look at what this creative duo can do when they're together and they get a complete run on a story. Although yes, I do think Criminal is a superior title overall, I think it's much easier to get into Image Comics by reading this first because it's still got a lot of those superhero tropes that you might be used to if you've previously read Marvel and DC. This entire book looks at Dylan, who after a failed suicide attempt is visited by a demon that said in order to survive he must kill somebody once every couple of days. With his newfound outlook on life, he decides to become a vigilante and take it out on criminals that are targeting the weak and the vulnerable. Yeah, a lot of it reminds me of Death Note, but it's still a great title in its own right. I do think that this is a great Image book for new readers so that you can get a sample of that Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips collaboration, so you get his sense of crime noir, but you also get Sean Phillips' beautiful art. So this is something that I definitely recommend if maybe you're a fan of The Punisher, or maybe you liked Ed Brubaker's writing in Gotham Central. But maybe you're not somebody who wants a more grounded superhero type story and you actually want something that does remind you of the Marvel and DC comics that you've loved before. Well, what better series could I recommend to you than Invincible? Yeah, you've probably already heard of this series, but it definitely deserves a recommendation on this list. If you want pure superhero action but without the restraints of tons of editors or events just clogging everything down, then this is definitely the book for you. I'm glad that this is getting a second boom in popularity as a result of the Amazon Prime TV show, but if you've only watched that, then you definitely need to pick up this title. It only gets more insane, and Robert Kirkman is one of my favourite writers. Ryan Ottley is one of the greatest artists that we've had in the past 20 years. And as well, maybe you are a bit sick of reading superhero stories that never really have an ending. Well, this has got a perfect journey of Mark Grayson. Everything that happens in this matters towards the complete journey. It's not going to be retconned later on. Nobody's going to continue it on or write more of the story. So this is a great example of what exactly Image can do when the creators are allowed to do what they want. But maybe you want something that's a more classic superhero Image storytelling. In that case, I would recommend the Spawn Compendium. My last video was on Spawn. It was talking about who the character is, so if you're unsure, I definitely recommend checking that out. And to be honest, that video could do with some love. I only picked this up within the last month or so, and I know that it's still on sale with our sponsor Organic Price Books. I definitely recommend checking them out and using the code WOOF for $2 off your order. But this is just really fun, gritty 90s superhero storytelling. It's not got the weight of Heroes Reborn hanging over it, or he hasn't got to deal with the aftermath of the death of Superman. It's Al Simmons and the awful deal that he made to become a Hellspawn, and just him wreaking his own vengeance on the scum of New York. You've also got great fill-in writers like Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, and just a ton of artists that you still know today. This is Todd McFarlane's baby, and it shows that he's just got so much love and passion towards this creation, and it's definitely one that I'd recommend if you're wanting something from the formation years of Image. But maybe you're turning to Image because you don't want anything superhero. Well, that's fine. I've got you covered there as well, because what I'd recommend is Chew. This is a really fun, enjoyable 60-issue series that unfortunately doesn't seem to get remembered now that it's finished. But when this was coming out, it was a really big deal, and I remember picking up this first trade paperback just based on the hype that it had, and it really delivered. I don't think it carries the same steam throughout it, but this is a story of Tony Chew, a detective that also has the ability to be able to see the history of the things that he eats. So if he eats an apple, he can see the tree that it came from, but if he eats the flesh of anything that was a living being, he can see how it dies. Obviously, I'm sure you can guess now that it comes in quite handy as a detective to see exactly how somebody was killed, and I think this is just a really great example of the unique type of storytelling that you can get from Image Comics. And also the art in this is just phenomenal. I love the layout, I love the paneling, and it just isn't something that you would see from anything coming from the big two companies. I can't lie, I do think this went kind of batshit crazy by the end of it, and I don't think it really sticks the landing, which is something that I seem to be saying about a lot of Image titles. In a video where admittedly I'm trying to promote the publisher, but still, I think that there's a great level of quality that comes through in this title that everybody should at least give a chance to. Now, before I jump into my next recommendation, I do have to say that I haven't read every single Image title that exists. Some of the big titles such as East of of West, Paper Girls, maybe even something like Wicked and the Divine. I haven't finished reading those, so I don't feel like it's fair to really pass judgment on them. My next pick's going to be SKYWARD, and this is for the people that maybe just want something a little bit different. Maybe you don't want a superhero title, maybe you don't want a crime noir, but you still want something that's self-contained, not too long, not too short, in which case, yeah, SKYWARD's probably perfect for you. But this is just really fun science fiction where one day gravity just stops working. And I'm not sure about anybody else, but I love those titles where it's pretty much, yeah, it's the world, but this is different. And it doesn't turn into your standard post-apocalyptic story that you'd probably expect it to, but it's still fun, quirky sci-fi that's got a lot of heart to it. I'm really hoping that ironically, this one does manage to stick the landing, but either way, if you're wanting a complete break from anything gritty, anything superhero-y, then I definitely think SKYWARD is something that you would enjoy. But maybe you're saying to yourself, no, I want something that's fully dark, fully gritty, that doesn't rely on tropes such as superheroes to try and lighten the mood. Well, Image has a great range of horror titles, but the one that I would recommend is NAILBITER. The concept of this is that there's a town in Oregon, I can't remember exactly the number, but some of the most dangerous and diabolical serial killers of the last 30 or so years have all originated from this same small town. And they're all really quirky and inventive, but the one that you're going to follow for the most part is Warren the Nailbiter. He got that name because he loved chewing the nails of his own victims, but you follow a story where it's sort of Silence of the Lambs, but it's also got this kind of Gone Girl vibe to it. It's got its own weird, twisted sense of humour through the killers that you learn about as the book goes on. And yeah, I'm going to be saying this again, which feels like it's just going to be the theme now for the rest of this video, but it doesn't really stick the landing in the way that I hoped it would. But for a great premise and a really enjoyable 20 or so first issues, this is definitely one that I'd recommend people reading, and it's just got a really unique art style. But yeah, maybe you also want to check out my review of it, I'll leave a link up there. How can I do a video suggesting Image comics to read without bringing up something by Rick Remender, and the one that's going to get my nod is Deadly Class. I haven't really read all of Black Science just yet, so I don't think I can put this on the list, although you never know, that might be something that you'll enjoy as well. But Deadly Class for me definitely gets a nod because it got pitched to me as basically Hogwarts for Assassin, but so much more. I feel like it's got a lot more depth to it than just being a Harry Potter clone, because we've seen countless ones of them throughout the years since the book came out. And even as a British person, I'm sick and tired of Harry Potter being everywhere. This is about a school of assassins. The main character's called Marcus, so yeah, maybe I'm a bit biased towards it, but it's got a great 80s vibe, a really unique, almost pop arty type style, and it's just got that sense that you don't get with a lot of books, that at any time, any character could be killed. But if you're going to start reading Image comics, Rick Remender is a name that you're probably going to be hearing quite a lot, and if I had to recommend one of his books to you, it's going to be this one. But another big name over at Image Comics that you're probably going to want to look into is Mark Millar. He's Scottish, so I'm definitely going to show him some love, but the Image title that I'd recommend from him is going to be Jupiter's Legacy. This is one that I only recently read, but already it's one of my favourite books of this year. And yeah, the TV show came out, it didn't really make too much of an impression, and it's had pretty mixed reviews, but admittedly the TV show doesn't even really follow the same beats as the comic, it's pretty much just the main concept. And this is split into sections so that you can pretty much just read the first 5 issues and still get a pretty decent story. I loved this book, it had great Frank Quitely art, and I think reading something like this, especially if it's going to be your first Image title, will really show you what the difference between a Marvel comic is and something from Image. There are moments in this book where you think everything's going to be okay because you're so conditioned to it, because of the fact that you know that title characters are normally often in about 8 other series, and if they're going to kill somebody, they normally announce it about 4 months in advance. But Jupiter's Legacy isn't afraid of completely turning those expectations on your head and just giving you a great time. I know throughout this video I've made it sound like I'm not going to recommend Image titles if they haven't been completed, but I'm a hypocrite, and I'm going to be for good reason, because my next recommendation is going to be SAGA. Brian K. Vaughan, one of the biggest names in comics, and yeah, he's done Paper Girls, which has been completed, but like I said earlier, I haven't read that yet. SAGA, however, was something that I was picking up in single issues, and I absolutely love it. This is really fun sci-fi, it's got great heart, great imagination, you genuinely don't know where this story's going, and the art by Fiona Staples is so unique, and I'd love to see what she would do if she was on a Marvel or DC book. This is a story that would only be allowed to be told at Image Comics, and I'm hoping that this resumes soon, but I know this is going to be big shoes to fill, but this gives me that feeling of what people spoke about when Star Wars first came out. Nah, fucked it, now the sequel's going to be shit. So if you're somebody that's turning to Image because you want to see something that you haven't seen in any other comic, then I think that Saga's definitely going to be the answer for you. And in a similar vein, but in a completely different direction, if you're wanting something that you're probably not going to see from any other comic, I would definitely recommend checking out I Hate Fairyland. This is Skottie Young, who's got one of the most enjoyable enjoyable, most enthusiastic art styles that I've seen in comics, but he's also taken over the writing duty, and any other time that you've probably seen him, he's probably been doing some kind of like Baby's Marvel cover, and I feel like in a way this was him addressing his own perception of himself. Because of his style, he is always seen as a person that's going to do family-friendly, fun storytelling, but this is him turning that on its head. So you follow Gertrude, who goes to Fairyland, and it's every kind of weird, mad Wizard of Oz type cliche that you'd expect it to be, but she is there for decades and she's just had enough of it, and she turns it just kind of into this nightmare. I really enjoyed this first book. I'm hoping to pick up the second one sooner rather than later, and I think that just as something, it's kind of like a palate cleanser if you're kind of getting a bit bored of superhero comics, or maybe just the whole grim and gritty thing that's kind of taken over everything now. Then I Hate Fairyland is probably a breath of fresh air. It's got a great sense of humour, a really unique and enjoyable art style, and I don't know, I had a really good time with this, and I just hope that other people do as well. And this is the last title that I'm going to put on this list. I have got another recommendation at the end, but you know, wait for that one. But this one means a lot to me. Like, yeah, I know that Powers was the first technical Image book that I read, and yeah, I read quite a lot of Savage Dragon when I found a dodgy website when I was really young and I didn't realise that piracy was bad. But this book that I'm about to recommend is a cliche now when you're talking about Image, and of course it's going to be The Walking Dead. I know the TV show was awful. I know that there was quite a lot of people that did follow it through to the end, but admittedly for me, because of how much I loved this, I couldn't stand the AMC series. Everything that is great about this book, that TV show decided to get rid of. Don't even get me started on Tyrese. But I'm going to put that to the side. That's a video for a different time, and fans of that series have probably already heavily disliked this video. But this is Robert Kirkman at his absolute best. This is Image Comics at its absolute best. This is a series that 20 years ago on paper had absolutely no chance of surviving, let alone being one of the most successful creator-owned series of all time. But the fact that The Walking Dead even exists and that we're reading it is a miracle. Robert Kirkman had to pitch this as a series that was a precursor for Aliens being introduced. But this is a zombie story that we didn't even realise that we wanted. We're so used to seeing zombies disappear after the 2-hour mark because we go out of the cinema and that's kind of it for the movie. But this doesn't allow you to do that, and over the course of its nearly 200 issues, you get to go on this journey with a group of characters that are constantly changing, that are never safe, that are always going about with their own problems that they've got to deal with, and it almost makes you realise that if there ever was a zombie apocalypse, there would still be a way of us getting through it. Yes, I do admit that it does tend to fall into the same pattern quite a few times, but I can't deny just how enjoyable this book is. And when 14-year-old Marcus got that first compendium, I really didn't know what I was in for, because I pretty much just bought it because I heard iFanboy talking about it all the time, and because it was Forbidden Planet's Book of the Week deal. But as soon as I read it, my eyes were open to creator-owned comics, and my perception of the medium itself was changed. And for the better. If it wasn't for this title, I might not have read a lot of these that have been on this list. And even though that I know that there's quite a lot of other Image books that I do need to give a chance to, I'm happy with all of these that I've read, and I can happily recommend them to anybody who wants to jump into this company. But that's what my last suggestion is going to be. You can pretty much read any Image title that you want. I know it might seem a bit counterproductive that I'm saying this in a where to start, because it kind of brings up the question, why did I make this video in the first place? But that's why I left it to the end. But you can read any Image book and be pretty comfortable with it. And some of the spin-offs like Sam and Twitch, even though it came as a result of Spawn, it still stands on its own 2 feet. That's why I think Image Comics is great, because if you feel like you're not getting what you want from Marvel or DC, there's probably going to be something similar at Image. And hopefully there's been at least one book on this list that's piqued your curiosity and will help you start to read this company. But I know, like I said, my knowledge of Image Comics is still quite beginner level, so I'd like to hear your recommendations. Let me know in the comment section below, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, why did you get this far? Subscribe if you're new here and click that bell notification so that you never miss a video. Share this video where you can, because I know that there's got to be quite a few people that are wanting to get into Image Comics but they don't know where they can begin. And why not check out one of my other videos? But until next time, just make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.